Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fatalist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_daddy. Today is PFF Day, so we're going to be looking at the best and the worst. It's obviously, as you would expect, a tale of two phases, or tale of two teams. The offense representing one side, the defense representing the other. And I will say, there is a part of me that feels a little bit better after looking at it, because it helps to kind of put things a little bit into perspective in terms of just essentially saying, okay, very specifically, this right here is the problem. That's not going to say that's it, but that's kind of it. But without further ado, why don't we go ahead and get started? Offensively, it wasn't all bad, but it was pretty much all bad. On the positive side, the only guy that graded out well, that actually played any sort of significant snaps, was Josh Jacobs. And it was, believe it or not, his receiving grade that got PFF the most excited. John Fitzpatrick also had a 77 overall grade thanks to an 89 receiving grade. That one makes a little bit more sense, but he only played 16 total snaps. And then Darian Kennard had a 77 grade, but only played 4 snaps, so I don't know how much we can take that seriously. The only other guys 60 or above: Zach Tom played 1 snap and had exactly a 60. Matthew Golden, 63. Dontavian Wicks, 64, and that's it. Below a 60, but still, kind of close, Bo Melton, but he played 3 snaps. Yes, Bo Melton played 3 snaps at wide receiver, apparently. Jordan Love, 59. Emmanuel Wilson, 59. Luke Musgrave, 57. And Chris Brooks, 56. In the sub-55 category, Sean Ryan, it gets worse for the offensive line, believe me. Sean Ryan, our right guard, with a 54 grade. Romeo, for whatever reason, run blocking primarily was his biggest sin, 51 grade. Tucker Kraft, 47 grade. Savion only played 6 snaps, but they gave him a 46. Malik, 17 snaps, had a 46. And then Elton Jenkins at a 44.6, Anthony Belton at a 41.6, Aaron Banks at a 40.9, Jordan Morgan at a 40.7, and Rasheed Walker at a 34.1. I said it on social media, and we'll get more in depth when we look at their pass blocking grades. This is not, I can't even put into words how big of a gap there is between this offensive line performance and maybe the next worst offensive line performance that I've ever seen. This is the worst offensive line performance I've seen from any team ever. There was not a single offensive lineman that was anything other than terrible in any way, shape, or form. But we'll get there. Jordan Love, we went through some of the more basic stats. They gave him a 63 passing grade, 1 big-time throw, 1 turnover-worthy play, which again, in the grand scheme of things, not that there were a ton of passing attempts, 25, 1 turnover-worthy play. That is not the end of the world. The problem is the turnover-worthy play turned into a turnover at the end of a game, right down by our goal line, and cost us the game. His adjusted completion percentage was 76%. They listed 1 drop in the game, sacked 5 times. His pressure to sack rate was 36%. That is his superpower. That's usually very low. It was very high in this game. His time to throw was down at 2.57 seconds. He had an 89.3 passer rating when targeted. When we look at the pressures, he was under pressure 45% of the game, which is, again, incredibly high. He had a 49 PFF grade when under pressure. He was just 4 of 9 for 17 yards. When kept clean, he was 14 of 16 for 166 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. It would have been a lot better if not for that interception, obviously. because those are fantastic numbers. 14 of 16, 87.5% completion rate, 10.4 yards per attempt, 166 yards and a touchdown. But again, the pick. As for our receivers, the receiving grades, 90 for Josh Jacobs, 89 for John Fitzpatrick, 64 for Wicks, 63 for Golden, 57 for Romeo, 49 for Tucker Kraft. Yards per route run, John Fitzpatrick at 3, Josh Jacobs at 2.6, Matthew Golden right at 2, Tucker at 1.26, Wicks at 1, Romeo at 0.86. The one drop was credited to Tucker Kraft in the game. I actually had forgotten about that one, but now that they mention it, I do remember that. Josh Jacobs was 100% on his contested catch opportunities. Dontavian Wicks was 0 for 1. Wicks was the only guy with a missed tackle forced. Romeo Doubs with the one penalty for the group. As for the rushing grades, Josh Jacobs 64, Matthew Golden 63, Emmanuel Wilson 58, Savion with a 50, and Jordan Love with a 47. Yards per attempt, Jordan Love 4.5, Emmanuel Wilson 4.2, Golden 3, Josh Jacobs 1.9, Savion Williams negative 0.5. If you look at after contact, though, Matthew Golden 5 yards after contact, which is always hilarious when the after contact is higher than the yards per attempt. It means that he was contacted on average negative 2 yards per attempt. So that was the point I made yesterday when some people were like, oh, Matthew Golden's no good at this. Are you kidding me? 5 yards after contact per attempt. Savion Williams was actually 3 yards. So he was 2.5 yards behind the line of scrimmage on average he was contacted. Emmanuel Wilson at 2.5 yards after contact, which means he was at about 2-ish yards before contact. Josh Jacobs, 2.38 yards after contact. He was at 1.9, which again means his average was negative. So Emmanuel Wilson was the only guy that didn't have a negative yards at contact, or whatever you would call that. Terrible. Missed tackles forced, Josh Jacobs 4, and then 1 for Wilson, Williams, and Golden. Longest carries, 10 yards for Jordan Love, Emmanuel Wilson 9, Jacobs 7, Golden 4, Savion 2. And then we get to the offensive line. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Well, we had technically 2 left tackles playing because Belton had to come in for those 4 snaps while Rashid got his face mask fixed. But we'll focus on Rashid because Belton was primarily on the right side. But Rashid Walker, the guy that we maybe should have been able to count on the most outside of Elton in this game, had a 56 run blocking grade and a 15.7 pass blocking grade. He gave up a sack, 2 hurries, and had 2 penalties in the game. His lowest grade all of last year was a 53. He had a 15 in this game. Going back to 2023, his lowest was a 40.7, and that was a massive outlier. In, 2022, he didn't play in the regular season. By far, not even close, by far, his worst pass blocking game. At left guard, we had 2 different guys in there. We had Aaron Banks. He was in there for 31 snaps. He gave up 1 sack and had a 12 pass blocking grade. 12. He added a 53 run blocking grade, so that's fantastic. Jordan Morgan came in. He gave up 1 sack and 2 hurries, 3 total pressures, and had 3 penalties. He had a 61 run blocking grade and a 22.5 pass blocking grade. 22.5 at center. We had arguably our best, probably our second best pass blocker of the day, Elton Jenkins. 47 run blocking grade, 33.6 pass blocking grade, 2 sacks in a hurry, 3 pressures, 91.9 pass blocking efficiency, 33.6 pass blocking. Awful. Now, the crazy part about that, Elton Jenkins hasn't had a game that bad since Detroit Week 1. He had a 35 pass blocking grade in that game. Technically a little bit worse, but more or less identical. So I don't know what the deal is with that. Center experiment not going super great so far. At right guard, Sean Ryan had a 62 run blocking grade and a 24.8 pass blocking grade. I mean, if anybody has a grade in the 20s or 30s, it's shocking, and I immediately think this has to be the worst game that this player has ever played. Every single one of our offensive linemen had a day like this. At right tackle, we had 4 different people playing. Zach Tom played just the 1 snap. They gave him a 60 grade because basically nothing happened. I'm guessing they're saying he got injured, is probably what ended up happening, but he did get a 0 pass blocking grade, so I'll throw him in there just for the sake of why not. Everything else is a disaster. Darian Kennard played 4 snaps, had a 70 pass blocking grade and 85 run blocking grade. Doesn't mean much because it's 4 snaps, but, there's that. But then you had Jordan Morgan, who we already went over with his 22 pass blocking grade, and second-round pick Anthony Belton. Belton technically had our best pass blocking grade, but he also had the worst run blocking grade of all of our offensive linemen. He had a 40.7 run blocking grade and a 39 pass blocking grade. So from left to right, just going over the 5 who played there the most, the pass blocking grades were 15, 22, 33, 24, and 39. Boy, I don't even know where to begin as far as theorizing what happened. Maybe something weird to do with communication was a disaster in this game. That's about the best that I can come up with, outside of the offensive line on their first road game decided to hit the town and they all got hammered drunk together. Those are the only 2 theories I can come up with, because otherwise I have not a clue what could have possibly taken place here. But anywho, why don't we take a break? We'll come back, take a look at the defense, a little bit of special teams, and see where that leaves us. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, on the defensive side, I mean, it wasn't all rosy. There were 3 people that fell below a 55. Number 1 is Baron Sorrell. He only played 6 snaps. Then it was Javon Bullard, who PFF continues to really dislike. Maybe a little bit more warranted in this game. And then after that was Evan Williams, who, again, I know he had 1 missed tackle or whatever. They gave him a 45.6. Bullard, a 47.3. His overall grade is at a 47 right now. 44, 61, and 47 are the 3 grades they've given him. On the 55 and above range, between there and 60, you've only got Devontae Wyatt and Keyshawn Nixon, so they were, we'll call it basically average. 60 and up, you had Carl Brooks, Carrington Valentine, Tyron Hopper, Edrin Cooper, again, they keep giving him kind of grades. Nate Hobbs, and then Nazir Stackhouse. 70 and above, Xavier McKinney, Rashawn Gary, Isaiah McDuffie, and Colby Wooden. 80 and above, Quay Walker and Micah Parsons. And then 90 and above, Lucas Van Ness and Kingsley Enagbare. So almost no bad in this game whatsoever. Decent amount of average, a lot of good. I mean, if you go 69 or higher, you got 9 out of 19 guys. About half your defense was at good to elite. If we look specifically at run defense grades, sub 55, Bullard, right at about 55, Wyatt, not surprisingly, a 51, and then Edrin Cooper, a 47. On the positive side, Carl Brooks, a 69, Evan Williams, 71, Xavier McKinney, 71, Van Ness, 74, Quay Walker, 80, Isaiah McDuffie, 84. Pass rush, Below a 55, Carl Brooks right at 54. Edgerrin Cooper, 48. They're just hammering that guy today. And actually for decent reason. He rushed the passer 12 times, only got home once. That's super rare. On the positive side, Rashawn Gary, 72. Colby Wooden, 79. Lucas Van Ness, 83. Kingsley, a 91. And Micah Parsons, a 91. Coverage grades on the negatives. I've noticed in the specific, there's never more than 2, which is fantastic. Bullard, a 47 cover grade. Evan Williams, a 42 cover grade. On the positive side, Quay Walker, a 72, and Edgerrin Cooper, a 78. Everybody else right in that average range. Let's go to coverage first, because pass rush is my favorite, and I want to save that. On the coverage side of things, Quay Walker, despite his positive grade, was targeted the most, 7 targets. 6 of those were caught, but that came with just 51 yards and a pass breakup. After that, Edgerrin Cooper, 5 targets, 4 receptions for just 19 yards and a pass breakup. That's fantastic. Keyshawn Nixon, 5 targets, 3 receptions for just 23 yards. They gave him a 56 grade, but that's fantastic to me. Bullard got a bad grade, but he gave up 4 targets, 3 receptions, just 1 yard. Again, I don't know what he botched or what they think he did wrong, but ultimately, at the end of the day, that's a good day. Evan Williams, 3 targets, 3 receptions, 24 yards. Not the greatest day in the world, but certainly not terrible. I mean, 24 yards is whoop-de-doo. Nate Hobbs, 3 targets, just 1 reception for 7 yards. Xavier McKinney, 2 targets, 1 reception for 17 yards, and a pick. Again, the pick was kind of stupid, so I hate to give him credit for it, but it's also hard to super say he had a bad day, which they didn't say he did either, but I'm just saying. And then Carrington Valentine, who played 18 snaps, 2 targets, 0 receptions, which is phenomenal. McDuffie also was the only other guy with double-digit coverage snaps. He had 12 snaps in coverage, 0 targets. The only person on the team who had a 100 passer rating when targeted was Evan Williams, and it was 100.0. It was right at 100. If we look at stops, these are, again, plays made, tackles made with that provided a negative EPA. Nate Hobbs, Keyshawn Nixon, and Carl Brooks with 1. Micah Parsons with 2. Rashawn Gary, Edgerrin Cooper, and Javon Bullard with 3. Isaiah McDuffie with 4, and Quay Walker with 5. I will say, if Edgerrin Cooper's ever had a less than elite day, it's nice to see that it was Quay Walker and McDuffie's day. Missed tackles, there were 7. 1 from Hobbs, McDuffie, Williams, Walker, and Bullard, and 2 from Edgerrin Cooper. And then finally, the pressures. We'll start with some of the negative first. The only real negative, and it's pretty bad, is Colby Wooden, who was given a good pass rush grade, so he must have beat people and just never got to the quarterback. Whatever, I don't know. But 23 pass rush attempts, didn't register a single pressure. That was really the only one. The only other person that rushed at all and had no pressures was Baron Sorrell. Everybody else that rushed at all had at least a pressure, which is really impressive. Quay Walker rushed 7 times and got 1 hit. Nazir Stackhouse only rushed 5 times and got a pressure, which is good considering that's not really what we brought him in for. He's still got a pretty low snap count, but I'm glad to see that he's hanging in there in terms of playing well. Edgerrin Cooper, as I said, 12 pass rush attempts and just 1 pressure, which is exceedingly low for him. Carl Brooks, he did have 2 pressures, including a hit in a hurry, but that was on 31 attempts, so not great. Devontae Wyatt had just 2 pressures on 24 attempts, just slightly below his below 10%. It's enough to kind of sustain maybe his where he's at, but definitely want to pick that up a little bit. Kingsley Enagbare, he only had 8 pass rush attempts and registered 2 pressures on those, so his 90 grade is on a little bit of a small snap count, 15 total, 8 pass rush, but still a good day for him. Then we get up into the really good day range. Rashawn Gary, 4 pressures on 32 attempts, which is what? 12.5%, but Again, 2 sacks on the day, which is fantastic. 12.5 and 2 sacks is awesome. Then you get Micah Parsons. He had 5 pressures on 37 attempts. That's 13.5% pressure rate. And then the biggest absolute psychotic demon of the day, 6 pressures for Lucas Van Ness on 19 pass rush attempts. That is 32%, 1/3, 6 of 19. That is insane. 4 hurries and 2 hits. Looking specifically at some run defense stats here, Quay Walker and Isaiah McDuffie led in tackles with 5 and 4. Missed tackles, just Cooper and Bullard with 1 each in the run game. Stops, you've got Gary and Brooks with 1, Parsons with 2, Bullard 2, McDuffie, Walker 3. And then the average depth of tackle, best one there was Carl Brooks at 1 yard, followed by Isaiah McDuffie at 1.8 yards. Penalties, though, were a bit of a problem. Keyshawn and Bullard with 1, Evan Williams and Micah Parsons each with 2. Micah Parsons at 2? I don't remember that. On the pass rush side, looking at pass rush productivity, from lowest to highest, Barron Sorrell, Colby Wooden at 0, Carl Brooks, Devontae Wyatt at 4, Edgerrin Cooper 5.6, Micah Parsons at 8.6, Rashawn Gary 12, Kingsley 12.5, Quay 12.5, Stackhouse 12.5, Van Ness 17.6. Looking at win percentage, Wyatt 13.6, Rashawn 20%, Colby 25%, Stackhouse 25%, Micah Parsons 31%, Van Ness 35.3%, Kingsley 37.5%. Craziness. Looking at true pass sets, Micah Parsons' grade went from a 91 up to a 92, a 90.9 compared to a 92. Van Ness and Gary's grades actually went down. Some fun win percentages. Nazir Stackhouse, 100% of his opportunities. It was just 1, but still. Good job. Van Ness is 50%. Micah Parsons, 41.2%. Gary, 36%. Colby Wooden, 25%. Wyatt, 20%. So they're winning their one-on-ones, which is the key here. Does no good to get Micah Parsons in here so that you can get one-on-ones if you're not going to win them anyways. Special teams grades, on the negative side, Van Ness 35, Keyshawn Nixon 30, Kingsley 29, Jordan Morgan 26. Saw somebody mention he was the guy that gave up that block. I will say, though, I wonder if we should be blaming the kicker a little bit for that. When I found out it wasn't the player that came flying off the edge and that it was one of the guys who just jumped, I didn't see it super close. I'd have to go back and watch. I didn't see somebody get a massive amount of push up the middle. It seemed like it was just kind of a regular old couple of guys jumping, which would mean the ball was too low. I don't think that should be entirely ruled out of the equation. On the positive side, Oladapo with a 67. He's been pretty consistently up there on special teams. Bullard with a 67. Sorrell with a 70. McDuffie 73. Chris Brooks 75. Zane Anderson 81. On the kick returns, Savion Williams was given a 68 grade. 3 returns for 78 yards. 35 was his longest. 26 was the average. On punt returns was just Matthew Golden, so the 2 rookie receivers handled 100% of those. He had 2 punt returns for 8 yards. His longest was 5 yards. Daniel Whelan, 71 punting grade, 5 punts, 265 yards. 53 yards was the yards per attempt, 46 net. 63 yards was the longest. 2 of his 5 were kicked inside of the 20. Only 2 of the 5 were returned, and even that was just for 15 yards. 1 was kicked out of bounds. 2 of them were fair caught. Average hang time was 4.84. So there you go. We'll take a break. When we come back, I just want to talk about one quick thing briefly, and then we'll get up out of here. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, so last thing I wanted to touch on, and this is not to excuse anything. I've already talked quite a bit about how unacceptable this game was, but it is to kind of talk a little bit to the doom and gloomers. This is the worst thing we've ever seen. This is the, biggest catastrophe. This is, whatever. The Packers in this game were 7.5-point favorites, which is big, but we've seen a lot bigger. And I think, with the expectations that we put on the team and everything else, we said, no, this is different because the defense is different, all these things are different. Anything in our mind that made it a bigger gap than 7.5 points was in our mind. Vegas is telling us, and in fact, do you know the last time we saw a point spread that was this heavily in our favor? It was this year. January 5th against the Chicago Bears. We were 7.5-point favorites, and we lost that game too. I understand those are different circumstances, but just to give you an idea of how much we were favorites in this game, it was the same amount that we were favorites against the Chicago Bears last year. And there were two games in between there that had 7.5 or more point favorites that ended in a loss. The Falcons were 7.5-point favorites against the Carolina Panthers and lost by 6. And the Lions against the Commanders in the playoffs were 8.5-point favorites and lost by 14. That is a 22.5-point swing from expectations. In fact, that's one of the biggest losses in terms of how much more negative the expectations were. Going all the way back to at least mid-2023 is as far as I'm looking right now. In 2024... it happened 13 times. That includes I'm talking the 2024-2025 season. It happened 13 different times. Lions-Buccaneers, where the Lions were 7.5-point favorites and lost by 4. That happened week 2 last year. The Baltimore Ravens were 8.5-point favorites playing the Las Vegas Raiders. They lost by 3. Bengals were 7.5-point favorites against the Commanders. They lost by 5. The Ravens against the Browns, actually, last year were 7.5-point favorites. They lost by 5. The Jets were 9.5-point favorites against the Patriots and lost by 3. Commanders were 9.5-point favorites against the Cowboys and lost by 8. The Texans were 8-point favorites against the Titans and lost by 5. The Colts were 7.5-point favorites against the Giants, lost by 12. Packers, Bears, Falcons, and all the ones that I had talked about. Those are just last year. Kansas City Chiefs, if you look back, the year they won the Super Bowl in 2023, they had a game against the Raiders where they were 11-point favorites and lost by 6. If we just look at the Packers specifically, it's been a little while since that Bears game, but you got to go all the way back to 2022. 7.5-point favorites against the Jets and lost by 7.5. Also in 2022, they were 9-point favorites against the Giants and lost by 5. Just looking at Rodgers' tenure, there were 11 different games where the Packers are favorited by 7.5 points or more and lost the game. If we look at against the spread margin, which is really all we're talking about here, we can actually broaden this out quite a bit. Against the spread margin just means how much did you underperform or overperform by. That way, even if you're not 7.5-point favorites, you could be, 1-point favorites, but if you lose by 12, you're still 11 points under what you were expected to do. The Packers were 10.5 points under what they were expected to do. Already this year, there have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 games where teams have underperformed by 10.5 points or more. Dolphins-Colts, where the Dolphins lost 33-8. The Dolphins were minus 24 on that. Remember, Packers are minus 10.5. How about Lions-Packers? The Packers are 1.5-point favorites. They won by 14. The Lions underperformed by 12.5 points. That is to say that the Lions underperformed more against the Packers than the Packers did against the Browns. To be clear here. And we could say that it's not the same or whatever you want to say. You can say that. Well, you can't lose to a team like that, but that is what we're talking about here. Bears-Lions. Bears losing 52-21. Steelers against the Seahawks, -17. Browns against the Ravens, -11.5. Vikings against the Falcons, -19.5. Titans against the Colts, -15. Falcons against the Panthers, -35.5. That's what happens when you are 5.5-point favorites and lose 30-0. Good Lord. Just about as bad, by the way, as Bengals-Vikings. Vikings apparently were 3-point favorites, but won 48-10. I honestly didn't even see what the final score of that was. I saw they were beating them badly. I didn't realize it was that bad. That is the Bengals underperforming by 35 points. Packers-Browns, again, just at 10.5. Raiders against the Commanders, -14. Saints against the Seahawks, -23.5. Cowboys against the Bears, -18.5. Just going back, I can't even go all the way back, at least not yet, to the beginning of Rodgers' tenure, but just from 2013 until the time that he left, I'm counting 33 different times that we've reached that level. 36. So from 2013 to 2022, there were 36 different times the Packers underperformed by 10.5 points or more. Packers-Saints, obviously, is one of them. When the Packers lost 38-3, that was 38.5-point underwhelming performance. Also, Lions-Packers back in 2018, when we lost 31-0, when we were 7.5-point favorites. Think about that. 7.5-point favorites against, so that's like the same situation. Imagine losing to the Browns 31-0. Brutal. Let's see, there's also Packers-Bears in 2007 was -36. The worst one as far back as I can go. 2005 Packers-Ravens. Packers are 3.5-point underdogs, but lost 48-3. That was -45. Excuse me, -41.5. Now I'm just kind of curious what some of the craziest ones I can find are. Here we go. 2010 Broncos-Raiders. Week 7. Broncos were 7.5-point favorites. So, again, same situation. Imagine Packers-Browns. They lost 59-14. They were 52.5 points under what they were expected to do. So again, this is in no way to excuse completely unacceptable, really bad, all that stuff. It is to say that this is the NFL. Sometimes this stupid crap does happen. It doesn't mean that this is our destiny for the rest of the season. Doesn't mean the Packers can't win the Super Bowl. In fact, if we go back and look at the 2010 season, Packers-Lions, both of those games had against the spread margins of -10.5 or worse. -10.5 on the dot. Week 14 against the Lions when they were 6.5-point favorites and lost by 4. The other game, they were 14.5-point favorites and won by 2. In fact, if you look at the 2010 season, Week 3, we played the Chicago Bears. It was a relatively close defensive battle where we ended up losing by 3. 2 weeks later against the Commanders, same thing. The final score was 13-6. We lost by 3 in that game. The very next week, another defensive battle. Miami Dolphins, 20-3. We lost by 3 in that game. So in the first 6 weeks, we were, looks like 3-3, with our 3 losses being close defensive battles where we lost by 3. In that Chicago Bears game, that Week 3 game, Aaron Rodgers, third year in the league, all that stuff. Packers were favorites, 3-point favorites, but still favorites. The game is tied 17-17. Packers are at about the 40-yard line. There's 2.5 minutes left. They're moving down the field. James Jones fumbles the ball, recovered by the Chicago Bears. The Bears drive down the field, kick a field goal with 8 seconds left, and they win the game. In the 2 weeks later, Washington Commanders take the game into overtime. A sloppy game. 13-13, Mason Crosby comes out for a 53-yarder to end it, misses the field goal. McNabb comes out, throws an interception to Tramon Williams with 1 second left on the clock. He returned it apparently 64 yards, but didn't score. We get into overtime. Packers get the ball first. They go 3 and out with an Aaron Rodgers sack on 3rd and 12. They end up punting the ball. The Packers respond. 3rd and 10, gets sacked by Brady Papinga. Again, another defensive battle. They can't get anything going. So they punt again. Packers get another shot. Throws a 5-yard pass to Brandon Jackson. Next play, 2nd and 5. Aaron Rodgers pass, incomplete short right, intended for Greg Jennings, intercepted by LaRon Landry. Rodgers throws a pick in overtime. Donovan McNabb drives down the field. They kick a 33-yard field goal from the Packers' 15-yard line to win in overtime. So week 3, a fumble is what lost them the game. 2 weeks later, an Aaron Rodgers pick loses them the game. And then the very next game is another overtime loss, a little bit more normal, but still absolute chaos. And again, the offense can't get the job done. The defense gets a stop in overtime. They have to punt. Aaron Rodgers and the offense get the ball back. Incomplete pass. Actually, it's a 4-yard run, then an incomplete pass, and then a sack by Cameron Wake, and they have to punt. They never get the ball back. The Dolphins drive down the field. Dan Carpenter drills a 44-yard field goal. So, again, not to excuse anything, but just to put things into context, the 2010 Green Bay Packers had a defense that was playing really good football. Not as good as the defense we have right now, but somewhat similar. In fact, through the first 3 weeks, they allowed 27 and 20. I'm not going to do the math. I would guess that's almost identical to the amount of points we've given up this year. The next 3 weeks, they gave up 26, 16, and 23, still quite good, but they were 3 and 3, largely because the offense couldn't get out of its own way. A fumble that turned into a loss, a pick that turned into a loss, and then, again, getting into overtime and not being able to finish in overtime even though the ball was in the offense's hands. It looked like a really good defense, which it was, being hamstrung by an offense that was causing them to be a pretty bad team, because 3 and 3 is not good. And in fact, it never got great. They went on to win their next 3, one of which should have been a loss. They only scored 9 points against the Jets. So think about that. You're 3 and 3. Then you play the Vikings. You win by 4 points, 28-24. Not super comfortable, but, whatever. We beat the Vikings. That's nice. Should be noted it was a 6 and 10 team that year, so they were never really very good at football, but whatever, we beat them. Then we play the Jets. It's a pretty good Jets team. They were 11-5. That's the Rex Ryan years. But we play the Jets, and it was pretty similar to this Browns game. Aaron Rodgers, he didn't throw any picks, but he also didn't throw any touchdowns and only threw for 170 yards. There was no offense in this game. Brandon Jackson was our top running back. He ran for 55 yards. Kuhn ran for 21. That's the entire offense. They couldn't do anything. The only reason the Packers won is because the defense allowed 0 points. So you're still not feeling good. You're 5 and 3, and we should have lost to the Jets. We barely beat the inept Vikings. This season sucks. Hilariously, then what? We have the Cowboys and then a bye week. Very same situation. Not the same weeks, but the exact same situation we're in now. The Packers absolutely blow out of the water the Dallas Cowboys. Hopefully we see something similar. It was 45-7. Finally, something we can feel good about. Haven't felt this good since we were 2-0 to start the season. Come out of the bye week, blow the Vikings out of the water. All right, now we're feeling real good, right? We got our big game coming up. We got the Atlanta Falcons, powerhouse, right? That was when Matt LaFleur was over there. Real scary team. We lost. Why did we lose? Kind of weird considering our defense held one of the best offenses in football in Atlanta to just 20 points. Why? Because the Packers offense couldn't score enough points to win. They only scored 17 points. Rodgers had a bunch of yards, but they were just not scoring. He had 344 yards, but just 1 scoring touchdown. He also added a rushing touchdown, which was the only other touchdown in the game. They started out with a 3 and out, drove down the field, got a field goal, drove down the field again, fumble, recovered by Atlanta, and then end of the half. Come out in the second half, 3 and out again. Get the ball back again, drive down the field, get our first touchdown almost toward the fourth quarter. We're halfway through the third quarter. The Falcons have the ball from 7.5 minutes all the way through the fourth quarter before we get the ball back again. get down to the 41-yard line, go for it on fourth down. Rodgers throws a pass, because obviously we're throwing passes on 4th and 1, incomplete to Donald Driver, turnover. Get the ball back again. It's like a 50-play drive. Jordy Nelson, touchdown. Frickin' finally. Unfortunately, it's just 17-17, and the Falcons are able to get far enough down the field to kick a field goal, very similar to the Browns game. It's just too much time left there's about a minute left. Packers get the ball back with 2 seconds left. Throws a 35-yard pass to Jennings. Jennings fumbles the ball out of bounds, end of the game. Just couldn't get it going, man. Too many stupid mistakes, too many not capitalizing things. All right, whatever. When we come back, we blow out the San Francisco 49ers 34-16. All right, well, we're feeling good again. It's not a good team. It was a 6-win team that year, but we're feeling a little bit better. Come back, play the Detroit Lions. Defense holds the Lions to 7 points. We lost the game. Again, you think about this is generational defense, and we blew it. Bro, our defense in 2010, and this, how many examples already? Here's another one. 7 points, and we lost the freaking game. That was Aaron Rodgers goes out, Matt Flynn comes in, whatever. But Rodgers was 7 of 11, 46 yards, and a pick was what he did. Matt Flynn comes in. He's 15 of 26 and a pick. The Packers' drives are fumble, punt, punt, pick, punt, 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 field goal, pick, punt, punt, and then turnover on downs. Imagine that crap. That was the Jim Schwartz Detroit Lions, by the way. The same frickin' Jim Schwartz Lions that just did what they did to us here. Or, Lions, Browns, whatever. And we got a game against the Patriots. This is back when the Patriots were good. Trying to bounce back. We actually scored 27 points. This is one of the very few games. The first time the defense actually let us down. In fact, it was the only time all year you could say that. Super Bowl was 25 points. That's not terrible. But 27-31, Packers lose. We're sitting at 8-6. This is not a very good team. It's not. The offense has been terrible. The offense has been a massive letdown. They can never finish. They can never get the job done. They're not doing what they need to do. And now the defense just lays an egg against the Patriots. And we're sitting here, and the playoffs are not even. I mean, not only do we have to win out, but we got other things that have to go in our favor in order to get into the playoffs. It's just looking pretty bleak. And then we get another blowout game. These occasionally happen, right? This is like our third or fourth blowout game of the season, 45-17. The final game, though, was not a blowout. We won the game scoring only 10 points against the Bears because our defense was so good they held them to 3. We should have lost that game. We absolutely should have lost that game. Just like we probably should have lost several other games, but the defense just willed us a win. So, I mean, you're excited, right? Everything went well. We're going into the playoffs, but this team's not doing anything. Are you kidding me? You scored 10 points against the Bears. 11-5 Lovie Smith Bears, but still completely unacceptable. Philadelphia Eagles, you only score 21. That's kind of not terrible, but again, the defense steps up, only allows them to score 16 points. Falcons, offense goes wild, scores 48. Bears game is much more balanced. Offense scores 21. Defense allows just 14. Offensive performance, really good defensive performance, again, kind of similar to Philadelphia. Super Bowl run, we score 31, defense gives up 25. The interesting thing about this run is that this never felt like an elite grounded team. This was just one of those things where just the right things happened at just the right time, which is how a lot of teams win Super Bowls. It's not this thing where we're a powerhouse, we're just good all the time, and then we're good all the way through the Super Bowl and we win. This was kind of fluky. You won just enough games by doing just enough right things to get into the playoffs. That first game, you needed the defense to step up because the offense didn't really do very much, and they did. The next game, you needed the offense because the defense kind of didn't step up, allowing 21 points, and they did. The next game, you needed the defense to step up because the offense wasn't going to do enough, and they did. And then in the last game, you needed the offense to step up because the defense was going to give up 25, and they did. And that's how we got a Super Bowl. It was ugly. It was largely an elite defense, but there were lots of losses, lots of disappointments, And there was, at the end of the day, a defense that needed the offense to step up at certain points, an offense that definitely relied on the defense a ton at enough points, a bunch of points, a plurality of points. And I'm sure the special teams played a part in all this as well. And at the end of the day, if the Packers go on to win the Super Bowl, it's probably going to be something similar. It's probably not going to be like the 1996 run where the offense and defense dominated the entire postseason. 35-14, 30-13, and 35-21. It was never close. The Packers dominated everybody all the time. I mean, they did lose 3 games in the regular season, but still, I mean, it was domination. And to be fair, it's not impossible that is the situation that we're going to find ourselves in, where we are more like the 96 Packers. But it's also possible that this is more like the 2010 Packers. That's a little bit more ugly. To be clear, though, the Packers in 1996 did lose Week 4 to the Minnesota Vikings, who were a 9-7 team. Not the greatest win in the world for a team that you would expect way more from. We'll just have to see. We'll have to see how these things play out, and that's all we can do. The Packers lost that game Week 4 to the Minnesota Vikings. They were 8-1 before they lost their next game to the Chiefs, and then they lost the game immediately after that to the Dallas Cowboys. So they were 8-1, fell to 8-3, and won the rest of their games. If they beat Dallas, Cincy, Arizona, Pittsburgh, and Carolina, they're 7-1 going into Philly. They could be 7-2 if they lose to Philly, 8-2 after the Giants, 9-2 after the Vikings, going into the Minnesota Vikings game in Detroit. I said can be. I don't know. I'm just pointing out how crazy stuff can go. It could go crazy in the exact opposite direction. There are probably examples of really bad Packers teams that I could go find. I'm not going to do that today. It's too depressing anyways, but it's somewhat interesting, so we'll see how tomorrow goes. There might be really bad teams that started off like they looked like they were going to be powerhouses and just completely fell off. That might exist, and maybe that's what's going to happen. I don't freaking know, man. But neither do you. So just to the doom and gloomers out there, I don't know. You don't know. We'll have to see how it goes. Dallas is looking extremely beatable at the moment. We're going into their house, a place that everybody seems to love. A lot of the problems we've had in the first 3 weeks of the season, right? 2 of the best pass rushers in football, in Aiden Hutchinson and Myles Garrett, we had to go against. We've had 2 of the best offensive linemen against Washington and Detroit we've had to go against. A lot of things kind of sucked that Dallas doesn't really have. They've got some good stuff. They do. They got some scary pieces. I think the quarterback is pretty good and all that kind of stuff. But I think everything they have is beatable. We have to figure out the offensive line situation. We have to. I know they don't have Myles Garrett, but it wasn't just Myles Garrett wrecking our offensive line. It was everybody, and it was all of our offensive linemen. So that is priority number 1. Figure that out. We beat Dallas. Then you go into the bye. You get healthy. You come out of the bye. You have to beat Cincinnati, Arizona, and Pittsburgh. And the other thing is, coming out of those games, hopefully we've won our last 4 at that point. Dallas, Bengals, Cardinals, Steelers. Now we're getting into Jaden Reed, Christian Watson territory coming back. And maybe they're already back by now. But you get these guys coming back going into the Carolina Panthers. That's their warm-up game. That's sort of the getting everybody acclimated back into it game. Hopefully by the time we see Philly, we are... Who knows what injuries are going to crop up. But the offensive line is not only healthy, but it's had some time to work together. And we've got Reed and Watson back. Fingers crossed. I don't know. I don't know what Reed's timeline is. But that's the goal. Get healthy, stack some wins, learn how to put all these pieces together and be ready. Golden needs to be fully in the fold. Micah Parsons needs to be fully in the fold. The offensive line and the communication and all that bull crap needs to be fully figured out by this point. Because now we got Philly, we got the Vikings, we got Detroit, we got Chicago, we got the Broncos, Chicago, Baltimore, Minnesota. Like, there's no more screwing around at that point. Either you are the top dogs or you're not. But we're going to figure it out through that little gauntlet there. All right, that's it. I'm out of here. You all have a good rest of your day. I will talk to you tonight, tomorrow, whatever. Have a good one. Bye-bye.